Good
afternoon. So today we will have our protocol presentation. So in between groups, we will ask around 1 or 2 questions for clarification.
சீமான் இவன் கத்திட்டு இருக்கான் விக்கி என்னாச்சு
live stream हो रहा है
So we will have our research protocol presentation today. You will have your September lower years NCH2 this semester as your audience so that they will know what to do when it's their turn. Okay? So it's not just your batch, but the batch next. Okay? So do your presentations well. Good luck. Let's start with the first group. Okay, I have enabled share screen. So to those who will share screen, please share screen now. Right? Yes, right.
yes sir
नहीं नहीं
We may start with group 1.
Guys, please mute yourself if you're not presenting.
आर्मी क्लास
uses social media regularly. It has also been seen that depression is a very common symptoms among the people who uses social media. Our major concern here is to determine the effect of social media on mental health and the age group which is most affected by this problem, and also the amount of awareness the most affected age group has about the social media and connectivity with its mental well-being, and what can be done, what is the solution about this problem. Our general objective is to find out the positive and negative effect of social media, and also how people uses them or misuses them for their benefit. Our specific objective is to know which social media platform is being used the most, like Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, or etc. Also, which age group is affected the most, and also how they tackle the issue, plus which psychological issue is most involved with the usage of social media.
Hypothesis is taken to show the relationship between the two variables. Here the null hypothesis which we are taking is there is no relationship between social media and mental health. And the alternative hypothesis is there is a significant relationship between social media and mental health. The significance of our study are: first, social media use is dominating people's life and attention. Research and evidences shows that the social media usage, particularly the heavy use, is linked to depression and other negative side effects. Second, some people argue that it is changing active users' brain chemistry and reshaping their relationships. A professor who specializes in psychiatry revealed that social media is physiologically rewiring the human brain. But social media can also serve as an outlet for individuals to develop and begin relationships. But it has a negative side effect that it can also aid in ending relationships. Many person reported feeling disconnected from friends and family due to the lack of interaction from them in person. Literature review. The first case shows the social media use and mental effect. In 2020, there are estimated 3.8 billion social media users worldwide. Recent studies have shown that individuals with mental disorders are increasingly gaining access to smartphones. Initial studies from 2015 found that 40% of inpatient and outpatient with schizophrenia reported using social media, among which 79% using at least once a week. Research also explored the motivation for using social media as well as the preserved benefits for interacting on these platforms among individuals with mental illness. Emerging research also shows that the young people with depression preferred using social media rather than communicating in real life. The second case study shows the social media impact on mental health. This is a quantitative study utilizing online survey which was done on 253 participants in California. It throws light on the relationship between the amount of time being spent on social media and its effect on mental health. The alarming result shows the positive relation between the excessive usage of social sites and depression. As the usage of social sites has increased exponentially worldwide, it has become a controversial topic of discussion. As of now, the known social sites are designed to be addictive and plays with the person's cognitive abilities and also affect the interpersonal and interpsychic relationship. This study proves the social media and Facebook not only reshape our mind but also shift how our society works and behave as a community.
Tony from Group 1. Next, we are going to see about research methods. This is a quantitative type of study, mostly comprised of close-ended questions with some open-ended questions. The sample size is 100 people who are picked randomly from different age groups who are using social media. The primary method for data collection is done by online survey through Google Forms. It contains some open-ended questions for their suggestions. Some of the questions in the questionnaire include how much time they are using social media. Did they face any problems? Did they face any mental problems in the past? Data analysis is the most important part. It is quantitatively as well as qualitatively assessed for people's knowledge about social media and how much they are most likely to acquire the problems. This is what we got after the data collection. Most of them are below 22 years of age, and the numbers are reducing.
Hi, I am Prathapan from Group 1. This is the next chart showing about the daily usage of social media among different age groups. This chart shows that young people are using the social media more frequently and regularly. With age, the usage. This is the table which helps us to interpret the data which we collected from the survey. Finally, the hypothetical interpretation of the results. Almost every people in this research admitted that they have faced or are facing minor mental issues, and some are accepting that they have faced major mental problems. Mostly these people are young people less than 22 or 23 because they are using the social media more frequently. This makes them more vulnerable to the mental issues, but with age, like in this case we took about 27. They used the social media in the past mostly, but now they are using lessly compared to the past. This make them less likely to have mental issues, but they have solutions or ways to overcome the mental issues causing by the social media by their experience and maturity. Finally, the best way to overcome all these issues is to avoid social media. But many won't do that. There are other issues like reduce the usage, spend more time with the families and friends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How did you ask if you said you asked if they were being bullied on social media? What are your questions? Or is it the one that you have shown?
I can share, doctor.
Again.
Did they get any bullied in the past? Like most of us are facing many websites are like they don't have recognition, but young people use them for their it mistook as a good website, but they are trapped in that website and they face bullying from them hackers, and how how they overcome this by the older adults.
Okay. So what is basically your conclusion?
Doctor, the young people who not know fully about the social media, so that they are using them more frequently than with above 25 or 27. They are using more frequently and regularly in their daily life. So they have more chance to acquire the mental health issues, uh, like depression, fear, feeling alone, the and other major mental health illness.
Okay. So what do you think? Mental health on social media affected? So um don't let what people perceive you to be on social media affect you, because you know that online how you present yourself is different, sometimes different from the way you live your life. Others present a glamorous life, but what they see is just the best foot forward. Of course, reality is harsher than that. So take it with a grain of salt using social media. Okay? Next group. Dr. Navarro, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have just a comment on the presentation. Also, the topic. Are you also going to investigate or study on the factors that would affect how social media and mental health, the correlation, the factors that correlates between social media and mental health? Is this going to be tackled also in your study, the factors
No, doctor. Only
affecting how social media? Yes.
what age group is more likely to acquire the mental health issues?
Because
Louder, please, louder.
Louder, louder.
Doctor, our research was mainly on the age group which is affected the most and the major issues being faced by them. But yes, further, if we get a chance to continue our research, we will also try to find out what are the factors contributing to it.
Yes, because we know for the fact that social media could affect mental health, but how and why? See, because if you're going to look in your study, you actually also presented a lot of studies being conducted. So I would probably think that the study would be better if this is going to be also a systematic review of other studies conducted in social media and mental health, right? Would you agree with me?
Yes, doctor, we agree with you. But this time, actually, most of the people are not even aware that how social media affect their mental health. So, for a cure, firstly, a problem should be stated. Then only a solution can be found out. So, firstly, we need to be aware that social media is creating a problem, and then we will surely look for a solution.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
At least you know also the direction and your objectives of this study. Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Thank you.
Double layer of milky and cocoa creams combined with the explosive taste of 2 crunchy wafer bites.
Next group. Okay. For those who are having troubles connecting, you could access this on YouTube also. If you can't join the Zoom. But anyways, next group. There's no sound.
Aditya, we cannot hear the audio. Aditya, the audio is not audible. Can you try and play it in your VLC player or something?
కలిపి తిన్న తర్వాత ఈ బాయి నీళ్లు తాగితే
Aditya, it is still not audible. Are you using your headset or something?
Dr. Rohit, I am trying to share the screen. Hello, screen.
That is presenting to you our research that is an epidemiological study on screening for cervical cancer by Group 2. Introduction. What is cancer? Cancer is the uncontrolled growth of body cells and can start almost anywhere in the human body. When cancer develops in the cervix of the female, it is termed as the cervical cancer or cancer cervix. Cervix is the lowest part of the uterus that connects the body of the uterus to the vagina. Most cervical cancer originate in the area where the endocervix and ectocervix join. Cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in women worldwide and second most common cancer in women living in less developed regions. WHO estimates about 530,000 new cases of cervical cancer globally as of 2012, with approximately 270,000 deaths, representing about 7.5% of all female cancer deaths. More than 85% of these deaths occurred in low and middle income countries. Cervical cancer can be prevented by vaccinating all females against HPVs and by screening and treating the precancerous lesions in women. In addition, if cervical cancer is detected early and treated in earlier stages, it can be cured. Symptoms of the disease include light bleeding between periods, menstrual bleeding that is longer than usual, bleeding after intercourse, douching, or pelvic exams, increased vaginal discharge, pain during sex, and bleeding after menopause, amongst others. Scope of the study. Cervical cancer is one of those diseases that is differentially expressed among the poor, amongst the immigrants, and people who don't have access to healthcare. So if every woman is screened as recommended, the chance of getting cervical cancers would be almost down to zero. This study focused on the factors contributing towards preventing women from getting screened for cervical cancer. This study examined the problem for various aspects, namely women's knowledge level for the cervical cancer, the perception and attitudes towards it, and the level of cervical screening utilization, whether the cervical screening practices vary between the rural and the urban women, as well as the factors that function as barrier for utilization of cervical cancer screening practices. The foregoing aspects of the problem comprehensively covers the issue of barriers to the cancer screening, and to help the knowledge about cervical cancer screening and the barriers preventing it. Although these issues have been extensively studied in the developing world context, they have not been conclusively addressed within the study area, which is why the current study is necessary. This study was conducted with the objective of formulating the knowledge of women about cervical cancer, its screening, role of doctor, source of information, the reason for not undergoing screening if the women had not undergone testing for cervical cancer, and to analyze the necessary circumstances of the same. The specific objective of this study were to interpret the knowledge about cervical cancer among women attending the OPDs of the hospital attached to the University of Perpetual Health System, Delta.
to explain about the awareness of cervical cancer, screening among these women, and facilities available for it, and to evaluate the frequency of screening for identifying presence of cervical cancer, as well as to explore the source of information, the role of healthcare providers who come in contact with women in hospitals, to identify factors affecting uptake of cervical screening, and to develop a comprehensive assessment to capture the precise hotspot of screening practices, to distinguish any socioeconomic, geographic, propensity, or a spatial clustering, to analyze the misconceptions and correct it accordingly. Our null hypothesis is there are no barriers or difficulties present in screening for cervical cancer, while our alternative hypothesis is there are barriers or difficulties present in screening for cervical cancer.
Going on review of related literature. So many studies have done before in the screening of cervical cancer. So the first research we have, it is from the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. It was done in 1981 by Adolf Stoll. So, according to this journal, cervical cancer is used to study the presence of cervical cancer, and it is far more advanced and efficient to colposcopy with respect to the visual magnification and the resolution. The Papanicolaou test is also used to identify the precancerous lesions within the cervix of the female. Meaning the precancerous cells can be detected by the pap smear test. The second research is from the IARC scientific publication, which was done in January 1992. It states that the epidemiology of the cervical cancer have a strong link with marital status, religion, and the sexual pattern. The major infectious agent is human papillomavirus, which is also known as HPV. There are many other causes such as cigarette smoking, nutritional deficit, and the most common, the use of oral contraceptives. This research also states that not only the female factor is responsible, but the male factor is also responsible. The third research we have is from gynecologic oncology, which was done in the year 1989. According to this research, parametrial lymph nodes are used in the detection, which are said to be associated with the cervical cancer. According to the seminar in radiation oncology, chemoradiation therapy is used as the treatment of cervical cancer. Cisplatin, epirubicin, and the combination of mitomycin along with 5-fluorouracil are effective in the radiation therapy. Now, moving further for the methodology part, cervical cancer is one of the most common worldwide and the leading cause of mortality in women. Now, how is cervical cancer identified? Ask the patient if he had any kind of history of cervical cancer or metastasis. Ask the patient about the process and diagnosis about the previous test. If the diagnosis found was a cervical cancer, if yes, confirm with the use of colposcopy or cervicography. For more detailed information, ask about her marital status, religion, and her sexual status. Ask about the screening if she had done before. Ask about the pap smear test if she knows. If yes, do further diagnosis. If not, explain briefly to your patient. Ask about the human papillomavirus and its awareness, because major infectious agent is human papillomavirus. If she had done pap smear test before, ask if it was painful. Is the screening available? Is it safe and harmless? If your patient haven't done screening before, ask the reason. If there is a fear of pain or anything else. If not done, explain the procedure of screening. If there is limited information on cervical cancer in the community, if yes, explain her briefly. If no, then go further. What are the main reasons you never had cervical cancer diagnosis? Ask her various reasons. If the reasons are not suitable, explain and guide. So all of our data was collected through the Google form questionnaire that we made before. And we asked our participants about their name, email address, age, sex, profession, religion, marital status, and etc. We asked our participants some generalized questions which are related to clinical screening of cervical cancer, such as, can screening help in preventing cervical cancer? Screening, if it is free, available, or harmless? Fear of pain is one of the reasons for not having cervical cancer screening. According to you, screening is more important or not? Have you ever had a gynecological examination? Have you ever had a pap smear test? What if you are tested with cervical cancer? Did you take the vaccine for human papillomavirus? Pap smear test is painful or not if you have done it before? There is limited information on cervical cancer in the community. This is true or false? What are the main reasons you never had a cervical cancer diagnosis? These were some questions that we have asked in our questionnaire. On the basis of the Google form questionnaire and the analysis we have done, so we have got 50 to 60 responses. Most of them were women, and the target population was women of different ages. The women from India of different age groups are selected to do the research on screening of cervical cancer of specially selected population of different professions. So we have done the grouping, such as age 18 to 25, we got 16 responses. 28 to 40, we got 29 responses. Age 41 to 55, we got 9 responses. And age above 55, we got 6 responses. Most of the people from the age groups of 28 to 40 are more responsive for the research, and most are accepting for the screening of cervical cancer.
Hello, I'm Jan Angel, and today I'll be discussing about the data analysis and processing. The researchers here have collected the data and analyzed it to gain the information on the data. The statistical methods used to analyze the data are pie chart and bar diagram. To understand why is screening for cervical cancer necessary, researchers have processed the data in steps such as data collection, data preparation, and input, processing, and others. Next is dummy table, and this is how the dummy table looks. It is a virtual table where you can perform a select even if it doesn't exist. It has empty cells which are to be filled after the data analysis. It outlines how the result of the trial will be reported. Next is inclusion criteria. It basically includes factors that are generalizable. Researchers have included factors like age, female, women who have a cervix, and others. Next is exclusion criteria. It is simply any characteristics or features that a potential population might have that would disqualify them from participating in the study. Researchers have excluded factors such as males, women without a cervix, or women who have had a removal of the cervix surgically, and other factors. Next is interpretation of the results. From the research, we can interpret it that although many women know about the screening of the cervical cancer, but its availability is very less, and that remains a major concern, right? A wide and effective spread of awareness is needed about the cervical cancer and its screening so that many can get the screening test done. Also, public health policy of the government play a major role in providing the awareness and necessary availability of the screening test. Thank you.
Okay, in your algorithm, there's something that bothered me. To confirm cervical cancer diagnosis, you have put colonoscopy. Could you clarify?
Doctor, we have done the survey from the Google form, so I can show you that.
Yes, your algorithm shows that your cervical cancer, to confirm it, you have written down colonoscopy, and there's something problematic with that statement.
I'm sorry, doctor, it may be due to the autocorrect. I'm really sorry for that.
Autocorrect. What is a confirmatory test for cervical screening, for cervical cancer diagnosis then? If it's autocorrect.
Pap smear test, doctor.
Pap smear is for screening. To confirm diagnosis, what is to be done?
Ma'am, first we will be doing the human papilloma virus test, so we can confirm that the woman have the infection, and after that we can for the confirmatory test, so we can use the pap smear test because it will detect the precancerous cells.
To confirm
as well as
diagnosis,
biopsy.
okay, you do cervical biopsy. Maybe that is what was auto-corrected. So remove the colonoscopy. That's a problematic statement because that is something not for cervical cancer, but for intestinal cancer, rectal cancer, whatever, but not for cervical cancer. Okay.
Yes, doctor.
So, doctor, I think there is a spelling mistake. It is supposed to be colposcopy, not colonoscopy.
It is colposcopy.
Okay. Colposcopy also done for suspected cervical cancer patients. I agree. Okay, but yeah, that's the hierarchy. You do pap smear, you do colposcopy, and HPV DNA testing, short of doing a cervical punch biopsy to confirm diagnosis. Okay? Doc El Rey, yun lang hindi ko pwede palampasin. Pero otherwise, your dummy tables, your questions are okay. If you proceed with this study, I think you will get good results. Doc El Rey? Okay, if there's none, I think Dr. El Rey is occupied. Could we have the next group?
Thank you, doctor.
Doctor, is my screen visible?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello everyone, myself Rutuja Mate from Group 3 and I am here to present research proposal on study of effects of meditation and yoga on stress levels of second year medicine students of University of Perpetual Health System Delta during this global crisis. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic has led to vulnerable population into reviewed focus. Many health problems are leading imminent to academic success. Mental illness can have effect on students' motivation and concentration, which are crucial factors. Many people's mental illness can develop increase in stress levels. Physical activity is one coping strategy that is perhaps underutilized by many college students. Many reviews and different studies on effects of meditation and stress levels in college students revealed positive effects of yoga on meditation reduction. Tripathi conducted a study to establish preliminary evidence of psychosocial effects of yoga and stress in young adults, college students, and concluded that yoga has positive effects on psychosocial levels that led to decrease in stress levels. Next, we have his questionnaire, which has two parts. First is demographic profile, which contains name, age, gender, and what type of yoga or meditation is practiced by the participant. Second one we have in this tabular form as shown below. Statement of problem. The stress levels in medical students are generally high in compared with other streams because of their academic requirements. But on the ongoing global crisis might have increased them even further. So we are studying the effect of practicing meditation and yoga on stress levels of medical students during these current global crises.
Objectives of the study. General objective: to elucidate the effect of meditation and yoga on stress levels of second year medical students of University of Perpetual Health System Delta during the current global crisis. Specific objectives: to determine the age, sex and type of yoga practices done by the respondents, to analyze the effects of yoga and meditation for decreasing stress levels on medical students during the current global crisis, to identify the significant changes in stress levels seen after practicing yoga and meditation by medical students levels during the current global crisis. Hypothesis. Null hypothesis: practicing meditation and yoga frequently can decrease the stress levels among the medical schools students during the global crisis. And alternative hypothesis: practicing meditation and yoga frequently cannot decrease the stress levels among medical school students during the global crisis. Significance of the study. This study aims to research the effects of meditation and yoga on the stress levels of students amid the global crisis. This research also helps to create awareness among the students on yoga practices and meditation with its effects to cope up with stress that is caused during the ongoing crisis. And this study also aims to be helpful for future researchers who conduct studies on this topic in future. Sampling population size: 400 foreign medical students of year level 2 from the University of Perpetual Health System Delta were taken as participants in this study.
Hello everyone, this is Wasim Alam and I am going to discuss the review of related literature of the title, which is a study on effect of meditation and yoga on a stress level of medical student in UPHSD during the current global crisis. We study a lot of related literature and studies, but we choose best of them for our research. So our first article is conducted by Virginia Lammy, John Houlihan and Ashley on pharmacy student, which shows decrease in stress and anxiety level when finishing a 6-week yoga and meditation program. Our second article is conducted by Pamela in 2017 among community college students. The result of this studies found no significantly difference among students' belief of meditation and stress level by gender and age, but finding shows statistically significant result for a student who reported high versus moderate stress level who believes in meditation. Our third article is conducted by Mane Satish, Devkar Rekha and Kamble in 2014. The result of these studies reveals that the students who practice yoga module performs better in academics than those who did not practice yoga module.
Methodology. Methodology is more specific about how a researcher systematically designs a study to ensure valid and reliable results that address the research aims and objectives. For our research, we have chosen Casper Comparative Quality Study, which aims the experimenter identifies but does not alter an independent variable such as yoga and meditation. The effects of the independent variables such as stress levels are assessed. The researcher will utilize natively formed or pre-existing groups such as second-year level medical students or assigning groups at random. Data gathering procedure. This procedure generally refers to obtaining information used in a dissertation to substantiate the claims made by a researcher. Researchers will visit to their research subjects in order to gather all of the information needed for this study, that is second-year medical students. A questionnaire will next be used to collect the necessary information as a survey. We have chosen Likert scale questionnaire as it is used to measure respondents' attitude by asking the extent to which they agree or disagree with a particular question or a statement. The collected data will be analyzed by statisticians in order to determine the influence of meditation and yogic practices on student stress level. Data gathering tools. Qualitative methods can be used to improve the quality of survey-based quantitative evaluations by helping generate evaluation hypotheses, strengthening the design of a survey questionnaires, and expanding or clarifying the quantitative evaluation findings. The researchers utilized a survey questionnaire based on stress levels that are commonly noticed among medical students, as well as meditation practices that they use to deal with them. In this study, we will analyze the collected data based on the response and the statistical method.
Operational definitions. In operational definitions, we are going to see 4 definitions. First is meditation. It is a practice where the individual uses techniques such as mindfulness or focusing the mind on a particular object to achieve mentally and emotionally a strong mindset. Second, stress. Stress is a feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope up with mental and emotional pressure. Third is pandemic. A pandemic is a disease outbreak that spreads across countries and continents, affects more people and takes more life than an epidemic. Fourth is welfare. It is a range of government program providing a financial or other aids to individual or group of people who are not able to support themselves. Second is validity. In our research, we make sure to include major aspects like how stress level is reduced by performing meditation and yoga. Along with that, we also would like to do the pilot test too. Third is the reliability. Convex alpha test to see multiple questions, like what scales, survey, or reliable. The multiple question measures latent variable or the unobservable variable.
So now coming to the dummy tables, here we'd like to explain how the data we've gathered will be analyzed and interpreted in a tabular form. So coming to the various sections we'll be having in our table, which are name, age, gender, yogic practice, and meditational practice. The data collected will be analyzed to answer the problem of the descriptive statistics such as mean and inferential statistics such as ANOVA, analysis of variance. Relative frequency will be used to express a number of populations or sample of having the same trait or characteristics as a percentage of the population size or sample size. Ethical consideration: one should have informed consent, voluntary participation, do no harm, maintain confidentiality, anonymity, and only assess relevant components. Thank you.
Doctor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So my question is, what were the independent and dependent variables in the hypothesis or hypotheses?
So our independent variable in our research is meditation and yoga, and coming to dependent variable, it is stress.
How do you measure your independent variables? Meditation and yoga.
Ma'am, basing on how the variable can be changed, like which can be.
So for example, you will ask your respondent, what are your expected answers? In the what's that in your dummy table? Meditative practice, yoga practice. What would be an expected answer to fill up those categories?
Doctor, like if they are doing yoga, they can tell like what type of yoga they are basically practicing, or meditation, then they can mention like if they are doing pranayama or anything as such.
So it's an open-ended question.
Yes,
what
like basically
kind
they
of
will
yoga?
specify what they are exactly doing.
Yes.
It should be like
numbering, or I practice 3 times or 4 times a week, or I did it within 2 or 3 months. It should be like that.
Yes, that's why you should have qualified in your questionnaire how often you do yoga, etc., etc., and not an open-ended, because if you do it that way, you will really have a diverse sample of answers. Same way, what are your expected answers with your meditative technique? How many times do I meditate? Am I correct?
No, doc. Actually, it should be like which type of yoga do you practice in your daily lives, or how many times in a week?
Yeah. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes.
Doctor, may I ask a question now?
Yes, you may ask.
Yeah. Did the instruments use the measures of the variables seem valid and reliable?
How will you measure validity and reliability? Those are valid questions for problems like yours, which when you ask, it's more subjective. There's unless you ask the number of times you meditate or practice yoga, the feeling of yoga and feeling of meditation is quite subjective. So how will you measure that?
I'm using a survey. We can measure, like we can analyze the variables.
How?
Ma'am, we can take the frequency of how they're gonna practice their meditational practice and yoga. Like we're gonna estimate, yeah, like on day how long will they practice it and how many days they have been practicing that particular practice, like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you arrive with the sample size of 400? Last question. Then we go to the next group.
Yeah, as we are the medical students, so we consider it as it would be appropriate to conduct this sample on our batch itself, so that we could know how exactly this yoga and meditation is affecting on the stress levels of our own friends.
How many are you in the batch?
Ma'am, we are around
400?
Yeah, more than 400, ma'am. We're actually like 450 or something.
Why not include the whole population?
Yeah, we can, but not. I'm not sure whether each and every person in my batch performs, like practices this yoga and meditation.
Yeah, that's why. Why specifically 400? Is there a sample size computation, or that is the expected number of responses, including the dropout, those who do not practice yoga? So include all, then put in your exclusion criteria. If they specify that they do not practice yoga or meditation, then do not include. But your sample size, you sample the entire population since it's not a lot of people. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay,
you,
good. Next group.
Hey guys, this is Amina Umar from Group 4. Today we will be discussing about a research protocol in the Department of Preventive Medicine and Community Health on the topic current increase of C-section among pregnant mothers in India. A consistent increase has been noted in the rate of C-section deliveries in most of the developed countries and in many developing countries like India over the last few decades. There is an increase in the trend of C-sectional deliveries in the institutional deliveries and growing access to gynecological care. The current paper will be an attempt to discuss and throw light on current increase of C-section scenarios in India and its states. Talking
about the significance of the study, C-section plays an important role in reducing the risk of maternal and fetal deaths due to parturition, but the emerging problem of modern midwifery today is the higher rates of C-section performed among women. Caesarean is often considered the safest method for delivery rather than the vaginal delivery in case of the danger posed to the mother and the baby due to certain medical conditions, which also reduces the death rate and the illness in the baby. Deliveries can be scheduled according to the mother's convenience, so it is important to analyze and understand the factors that influence the risk of C-section.
Now let's discuss the literature review of the study. Benefits of planned cesarean delivery over the planned vaginal delivery. A lesser risk of postpartum hemorrhage and stress urinary incontinence, a lower rate of fetal mortality, birth injury, neonatal asphyxia and encephalopathy, safe for breech birth. Concept of requesting a cesarean delivery is relatively recent. The women's try to determine the route of the delivery. Internal risks. Cesarean delivery is associated with high rate of injury to the abdominal organs. It can interfere with the mother-infant interactions in the delivery. Women who have multiple repeat cesarean deliveries are at increased risk of problems with the placenta, complications related to adhesions, incision-related complications. Why are breech babies born by C-section? When babies are in breech position, several delivery complications emerge. His feet or bottom may tangle with the umbilical cord, causing issues such as umbilical cord prolapse. His body may also emerge from the cervix before it's fully dilated, and the head may get stuck in the birth canal.
Objectives of the study. General objectives. The general objectives of our study is to find out the different reasons for the current increase in the number of cesarean section among pregnant mothers. In this study, we will find the advantages and the disadvantages of cesarean sections on the maternal health and the newborn. Keeping in view the above background, present study seeks to examine the level and trend of the cesarean section delivery in India and its states. It also tries to identify various factors associated with cesarean delivery in India. Another objective of this study is to understand the possible reasons of very high rate of C-section in some parts of India. In specific objectives, we have to describe the different reasons for preferring C-section over normal vaginal delivery, and to formulate the effects of repeated cesarean sections on the pregnant mothers and newborns, and also to illustrate the cause of spontaneous vaginal deliveries and obligatory cesarean sections in case of twins and of breech babies.
Methodology. This research is a qualitative study design where we observe the increase in cesareans in the country and the preference for it by the mothers. Indian nationals whom all underwent childbirth were allowed to participate. This survey contains open-ended questions regarding their preference and childbirth experience that will be circulated online through websites and apps. The questions will mainly contain of why they chose the procedures they went through, that is either vaginal or cesarean, along with their experiences with their doctors. We also added questions on how it felt to have a baby, and lastly, if they faced any difficulties or change in methodological procedures because of consecutive births. Data processing and analysis. The proportion of women delivering a child in a hospital has increased over the decades by nearly 21% in rural parts and 37% in the urban parts of India. Both the government and the private sector hospitals take up cesarean deliveries, but the survey findings point out that the private hospitals are largely responsible for the increasing C-sections in India. Even though only 29% of the institutional births take place in private sector hospitals, they conduct nearly 63% of C-sections, while compared with the government that conducts nearly 70% deliveries, out of which only 35% are C-sections. Telangana, a city in the southern part of India, has recorded an increase in 69% in cesarean deliveries, making it to the top survey chart.
Summarizing the analysis, the average expenditure per child in case of a cesarean is nearly 5 times more than that in case of a normal delivery. This indicates that Indians spend more on the child than they would otherwise. Behind the high C-section rates in India, there is a pure commercial interest, particularly in the private sector hospitals. C-section among the wealthier families is an indicator of a financial motive. Next, the dummy tables. In many countries, especially the high-income ones, the rates of cesarean sections have increased steadily in the past 3 decades. In the 1985 WHO statement, the regional cesarean sections rates should not exceed to 10 to 15% was based on evidence that was available during that time. However, the validity of this threshold has since been questioned. Conversely, in many lower-income countries, inadequate access to the safely and timely cesarean deliveries was a substantial barrier in improving the outcomes of the mother and the neonates. So we deduced a qualitative analysis to assess the factors motivating the mothers now to have a cesarean delivery.
Okay. Any questions from the group? From the other groups before I ask the question?
No questions, ma'am.
No
Question. Hi, Doctora.
Go ahead, Doc El Rey. Mute ka, sir. Mute ka.
Doctor, you are mute.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. When you were actually who is your target or the population target if you're going to conduct this study again?
It's mostly going to be the pregnant mothers, doctor.
Okay, so
pregnant or who has given childbirth previously.
Okay, just a simple question: who decides if the pregnant mother will be under a C-section or he has to have a vaginal delivery? Who do you think make the decision?
If it's a complicated case, mostly the doctor makes the decision. But then if they have a choice, usually we found out that in the survey findings, we found out that financially wealthier families have, have opted to get a C-section instead of vaginal births.
Okay. And are you also going to... Yeah, proceed.
Is Telangana a wealthy state? Is it like Metro Manila, Cebu or something?
It's more like there's an increase in the cesarean sections because like private sectors conduct most of the deliveries in Telangana. So maybe that may be the reason for the hike in their survey chart.
Yes, because there's a huge disparity between your percentage of cesarean sections in private, which you mentioned at 60+%, to your public, which you say was at 35. Well, that I could say that that statistics also is what was found in the Philippines. Private hospitals would go as high as 50. Actually, Asian is at 80%. Wherein the public hospitals would hover around 20 to 30%. Okay, so it's coming. See, as per maternal request, informed choice, women not wanting to undergo labor. But again, with things that you have mentioned, placental problems, other complications associated with a cesarean section is also on the rise with this increasing trend. Okay, that's why you call a normal delivery, and a cesarean section, I consider it as something abnormal because something went wrong. The baby did not come out. And before, when cesarean section was not available, these are children and mothers who die of childbirth. But because cesarean section is available for intervention, your statement says that it would be safer, less risky, but studies show that there is no significant difference between maternal mortality and morbidity if we relate it to your SDG goals to a normal delivery. Although breech primary, I agree, we do CS, etc., etc. Some obstetrical indications, we do agree. But again, who decides? Is it the patient or is it the OB? And it's a skill for the OB to convince patients to undergo cesarean section even if you do not need one. And like it or not, in the OBGYN profession, there are people who do that in the name of fetal safety, mother's safety. It just takes one fetal mortality that you push the mother's limits to dystocia for you to change your practice. It just takes one fetal death or maternal death and you would have a shorter string. Oh, I will do cesarean section than me lose the baby, than me lose my patients. But if you follow strict rules before you do a cesarean section, if you do practice in a public hospital or a teaching hospital and there is audit, every cesarean section you have to explain why you did a cesarean section. And maternal request is not one of them. Although little by little, mother's choice, informed choice of cesarean per request is slowly being accepted. Okay? Wag na magsinungaling. Ay, sorry. Don't hide behind certain indications just to justify your cesarean section. If your mother asks for it, why not? Right? Others kasi, Doc, kung ano-anong sasabihin. Kasi
As if-
alam nila, nag-usap na others, a prior contract between the patient and doctor. I don't want to have a difficulty in labor. If the patient says, I don't want to bear down anymore, CS na.
Remember, we have the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. Okay? Is this principle being implemented or followed if you're actually inducing a lot of more
CS
harm?
for maternal request.
Now,
also,
yeah.
As or since Dr. Navarro has mentioned the principles, is it just? Remember, your bioethical principle of justice states that if you are able to do this service to one, you should be able to offer it to all. But again, who are the ones who request CS per request? It's your more affluent, your career-oriented women. Okay? For those people who do not have the money, you are convincing the patient already to do a cesarean section, yet they are saying, Doc, I could still do vaginal. But all indicators say you should do a cesarean section. It's the other way around. If there's a limitation in budget. Okay? So, bioethical principles. Okay. First, do no harm. Okay. Why? Increase cesarean section, increase placental complications such as your creta per creta in creta. By the time that you become OBGYNs or doctors, because there are a lot of cesarean sections being performed left and right. That's one complication that you would always have to look at. Okay? Gumagaling sila, Doc, no? Sige,
Yes.
next group.
Next group.
Hindi na masyado masakit sa ulo.
Yes. We also would like you to encourage you to become more analytical of the topics and the research that you are actually presenting. And it seems that you are quite improving from the previous batches that we heard.
Okay, next.
Hello, everyone. So today we will be talking about our research work, which is based on the impact of COVID-19 on the business process outsourcing industry specifically the city of Shillong, which is based in India, and its effect on the workers' mental health. So this business is basically the fastest growing segment of the information technology enabled services of India. And our research is mainly based on how heavily these employers and employees have been affected by COVID-19. So in cases where their services are not needed by the business houses because the business themselves have been halted for quite some time, and in cases where work from home is difficult due to the inconvenience of mobility curbs and client protocol, there's lack of community, lack of office equipment, and overwhelming connection problems due to a multitude of users trying to access systems remotely, and also the responsibility and well-being of the employers to keep the company alive must be a great deal of stress for these workers to be dealing with. So the purpose of this research paper is to understand how drastic these detrimental effects of the pandemic has been on our employees, and also to be able to find suitable solutions and ideas to help the problems mentioned. A questionnaire has been developed using the Likert scale, with questions like, I feel as productive at home as I am in the office, or with, I have a healthy work life and a life balance when working from home, and so on.
Objectives. Our general objective is to highlight the decline in the mental health of the BPO workers, which is fueled by the pandemic, to highlight the reasons and risk factors for the said decline and to provide interventions for improving the mental well-being of the BPO employees of Shillong. And our specific objective is to gather information for the employers of the BPO companies in Shillong so as to understand the employees' overall well-being and to enhance their productivity and maximize workforce. Hypothesis. The hypothesis is that the pandemic led to the downfall of the BPO industry, which has affected the mental health of the BPO workers. And the null hypothesis is the pandemic led to the downfall of the BPO industry, which has no impact on the mental health of BPO workers. Our significance of this research proposal is to, number one, emphasize on the importance of the mental health of BPO workers and how they can overcome obstacles which will make their mental pain. Number two, to provide a good resource of how a sudden change in the workplace environment can bring about a decrease in the productivity at one's work and affect them mentally. And finally, to gauge the productivity of the employees after a change in the workplace, thereby maximizing the financial gain of the respective company.
So for the literature review, we review a few articles relating to the topic on the impact of COVID-19 on the BPO, which is a business process outsourcing industry in India, and it affects in the mental health. So according to Emerald Open Research literature review that is conducted in 2020, the articles stated that there is a negative impact of COVID-19 on the individual mental health, such as psychological distress and major depression. The stressor include the perception of safety, threat, and the risk of contagious of the virus, infobesity, which is the information overload, and the unknown, which is the information that we get from the social media, which is not reliable. The quarantine and confinement, stigma and social exclusion, as well as the financial loss, job insecurity. The Hindu's Business Line 2020, according to the literature review, they stated that the projected fall in the rate of GDP
appreciate that you put in the ethical considerations of the research that should not be skipped. Okay. Again, depression is quite hard to measure and it's also subjective. One will be depressed at a slight setback, wherein if you have a lot of setbacks already, it will take a little bit more for you to get depressed. But in general, due to this pandemic, people would be like, how do you call this? Zombies functioning. You try to function, same with this online class, etc., etc. Both of you, students, teachers alike, try to function as much as optimally as they would like, but of course with other things in mind. Okay?
Yes, doctor.
It takes a toll. Okay? For example, I just got discharged from the hospital because I got COVID. So for the past 2 weeks, actually till Wednesday next week, I technically could not go out. But thankfully, I'm discharged from the hospital. But I had difficulty of breathing, etc., etc. And it was scary. But again, we have to continue with things that we have to do in life.
Yes, doctor. Things
So
have to move on.
you have to move on. Life goes on.
Yes,
It does not stop. That's why it's hard. We're thinking going back face to face. But again, you going face to face, we have to iron out a lot of things as well. But then we also acknowledge the fact that we cannot continue virtually forever because it would be a disservice to you to remain virtual and you not learn how to do patients hands-on, how to do clinical interviews, interact with patients, etc., etc., and see the disease unfold right before your eyes. Okay, we'll continue next Friday. Dr. Navarro and I were talking over Messenger. We're very happy with your output. Very good. I hope it continues with the other groups. But judging from the presentations that we've seen this afternoon, this evening, it's very encouraging. Job well done. Okay, good night.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Doc. Good night.